Matthew.
What about, like, so obviously the Titan deck plays a lot of its lands almost as spells, and there's going to be a few key ones which they flick between different metas and how they're going to use it. But what about like things like Cavern of Souls? How big is that going to be in this matchup?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Cavern of Souls basically, thwarts the main plan, which is not getting Titan resolved in the first place. Because if the Titan resolves and you can get rid of it, so far so good. But those lands that can be tutted out could be, for example, double Saga. And then you have another problem on your hands. So we would like the Titan not to resolve in the first place. And Caverns really, really make that more difficult. Now, what we saw in Luna's hand was Dress Down. And Dress Down is a real doozy against Titan.
Why are we seeing a bit of an uptick in these Titan decks now? Like, has any new cards been printed for them?
Okay, funny you should ask that. So there is a Mycosynth Gardens, or the Mycosynth Gardens, which basically is a land that can turn into an amulet. And I have seen multiple screenshots from online games that people have, like 4, 5, 6 amulets at the same time, which is awesome when you have something like Cultivator Colossus. You dump 20 lands into play, have, all those lands, quadruple triggers, and just go to town. So it's basically a way those Mycosynth Gardens have access to more amulets.
It does look like in Matthew's hand here, we've got double Saga, double Amulet, 2 green spells I can't quite make out. And as you said, over on the other side of Luna's side, she's got counter spells, Dress Downs to Fairies. She looks like she's got a hand. As long as she can hit her land drops, that'll be pretty much inclined to be able to deal with a lot of these threats. As we see the turn 1 Amulet come down. So Matthew did manage to win the dice roll here. Just going to see land pass back. She's having a good look, just making sure that is the foil. I think that's the foil promo we've got in play there. Is this the which art is that of Explore? That's the Explore,
Yep.
right? The alternate art Explore.
Yeah.
As a second Saga comes down. Any are we going to dedicate any of our time to just making constructs here, which we normally see versus Saga, or we just floating mana and just basically trying to go off next turn?
Right. So the issue is, unfortunately, you would be walking straight into a counter spell. So the question is, how many Caverns are in Matthew's deck? Because it could be as few as 0 and as many as 4. So if there are, for example, 0, you have to play through the counter spells anyway. So you might as well jam, and it doesn't get better for you. But if there are Caverns, you might try to play towards drawing them. Now, the issue with the Saga plan, which is normally excellent against blue-white control, is that Luna has got main deck Dress Down, which is towards the whole plan.
Mm-hmm. I suppose we could go, like, they might have a exploration map in the deck that they could find of a Saga, use that mana, float, go find themselves a cavern that way, which is one of the tools of this deck, right? It is a toolbox deck, basically, for lands.
Right, so you could do it this way. You could also cycle Tolaria West, which finds you Cavern of Souls as well. So there are 2 ways you could do it. But the Titan is one of those decks that you don't play 20 lands. You don't even play 25. You don't even play 30. It's literally like upwards of 30 lands in the deck, like 32, 33. Not sure the exact number. So it's one of those decks that over half the deck is lands.
It does look like we are making a construct deck. Only just currently a 2/2. Will be a 3/3 as one of these artifacts it spells. And realistically, let's be honest, the deck is named after it. We are going to get ourselves a second amulet here, making the construct a 3/3, and we still have a land drop to make for the turn, which is a Cavern of Souls in hand by looks of it. Bam,
yep.
Cavern.
Now, this doesn't have to name Giant, because this could name, for example, Dryad to force through Dryad of Elysian Grove, because you might not really want to put all your eggs into this Titania's basket. So it really depends. Now, this is a backbreaker. It's a backbreaker for numerous reasons, because 1, Dress Down kills the constructs, but 2, it also makes the Titan have no enter the battlefield triggers. It also kills Cultivator Colossus. So, like, if there is one card that's great against Titan, it's Dress Down, and she has it main deck, and you can also bounce it with her own Teferi, which is just disgusting.
Well, we're looking at that is a grip for the cards. Look at that hand holder and how much we can see. We've got counter spells, three different ones. We've got a Shark Typhoon, we've got a Chalice, we've got Leyland's Binding and a Teferi. No lands there though, so it looks like both players are kind of struggling to find a bit of land here. But these counter spells, it depends on what name we did. We'll see if we can get confirmation what was named. It looks like Cavern was named Giant. So now this trigger goes on the stack, and we're going to float one. Yep, we're floating one mana here.
So if there is expedition map, I think it will get found. But if there isn't any, it will be just a third amulet. Okay, so there is a map.
Now, if he hands the deck back to get cut, I'm going to say we're not going to crack it this turn. But there's a lot of shuffling going on, so I imagine we are handing it back. So we've got something to do with our mana this turn.
So because this expedition map,
ignore what I just said. Ignore it.
Yeah. This could find a Bouseland, and Bouseland will generate a ton of mana. And actually, a Titan through Cavern here would be okay. Now, it will be leyline bound, but what you can do sometimes is have some like tricksy, you can find like Bouseland, Tolaria West, so Simi-Grove Chamber, Tolaria West, add a bunch of mana, return Tolaria West to hand, find a pact for another Titan. And so sometimes it could be really, really deadly. But now, leyline binding on Amulet to make all of the things I've just said impossible.
So I've got a question here. I've got a couple of Archmage Charms in hand. They're not really doing much in the face of this Cavern besides drawing me 2 cards. Couldn't I have just stolen one of these amulets and left the binding for potentially a Dryad coming down or a Titan? Because that's probably one of my answers to these threats that are now what I've got to start worrying about.
So that is a fair point, but I think she actually does want to use it as a draw too because she's missing her land drops. So, but I think she could have hedged and like used one charm and then potentially decide whether she wants to take the other amulet with charm again or use leyline binding.
We'll see, as we're going to see a lot of like drawing cards here rampant. We've got the lands in hand now. That does look like a Titan. We've played 1 land for turn, I believe. Did to get our triggers from it. This will be the second one, so that is naming. That's another Cavern, so we know there's these 2 in the deck. I'm guessing that one's going to be on Giant.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, I have to say that both players, and that's something I really personally like. They've been playing so elegantly, like the shuffling in hand, the placing cards on the battlefield. I really, really like the elegance with which they play.
Well, Luna's doing the classic thing of just draw the boss cards off the top. Might not be the land she's after, but a Solitude here can help. She could potentially use a Charm, steal maybe the other amulets on the battlefield, pit that move to her side, hold up a Solitude. Like she's got a lot of answers here. It looks like she's going to Charm draw 2 because she wants to hit her land drops, as she does hit at least 1. It does hit 2. Is she giving away any information here? Nope, she's just playing it all out. Get rid of this.
So the info she's given out is that she doesn't have more lands, but I'm not sure if that's relevant. Like Matthew just knows, okay, Luna has got all gas, but he has to play through the gas anyway. So
okay, Math, can we play a Titan this turn?
So the 3 mana, Simi-Grove. There's a pact
and a Dryad in hand.
Oh, someone is packed can just flip it all around. But there is a Dryad, there is Titan. So I'm not sure that this pact accomplishes anything right now. Because this is
a couple of Titan players in chat. They'll look, and I'm sure they'll tell us if we can. So let's think about it. So we play a bounce land, comes back, we tap it. That's 5 mana. We play the Dryad down to 2 mana. Play the land again. That's 4 up to 4. I don't know if I'm missing something here.
So I can see Pact Azusa as a line. So you pact for Azusa, you tap out for Azusa, then you've got 3 land drops. Yeah, and 3 land drops are triple Grove Chamber, which gives you exactly 6. So yeah, Pact for Azusa does it.
No, we're going to go for Grazer. I suppose Grazer does it, right? Gives us a second land drop, 1 mana, add 2 +2 on the battlefield.
Right, because you spend less, but yeah.
Are we getting Grazer over Azusa? Because obviously the triggers will then start going on the stack from the lands, and we potentially could kill the Azusa in response. Is that why we've gone for the Grazer plan here?
It's literally possible that Matthew doesn't play Azusa. Ever since Dryad was printed, I've seen like 1 Azusa played. There could also be 0 Azusas. So that's another reason. Like they literally could be 0 Azusas in the deck.
So we're going to see Titan come down here. Obviously, with the cabin, I imagine, which was named on giant, so we couldn't count it even if we wanted to. We're going to go fetch up a couple of lands here. Generically, it's normally ones to give it haste, so then we can get more lands. But we'll see how we want to move forward there, how much she wants to do. Obviously, chat's pointed out, and I did say earlier, there is a chalice in hand that could have been played on 0 to potentially stop this turn. She chose against it. You know, I'm sure she's got her reasons. Maybe she was thinking it's not worth it playing it out, or maybe she wanted to play it on maybe 2. Doubt she's going to try and play it on 6, but
with so many cards in hand, like cards are not like if she had like chalice and like maybe a land, she could just hold it in hand because she needs to preserve her resources well. But now with a full grip, I think she can spew cards left and right and just play it on 0. And if it does nothing, it does nothing. Also, worst case, she can just bounce it with Teferi back to hand. So I think I would have played it on 0.
So there's obviously a lot of triggers. So what's happened basically, the Titan's been given haste. It's now attacked. It's now on its second lot of triggers, I believe. And she will end up taking 8 points of damage this turn. Unless we've got a way to, we're going to go for like the double strike, but I think you need double amulet for that to happen. Matthew having a think. You know what I mean? His game plan's enhancing right now. He just needs to make sure he doesn't really mess it up. Give himself the best chance if something next turn, like maybe a supreme verdict happen or something along those lines. He's just trying to work out what lands are best for him to get. And it looks like it's going to be Valakut plus a way to copy it. We'll see if we can see what name that is going to copy. I imagine it's another Valakut, but you know, I've been wrong before. As that, it looks like it's a bounce land because it was bouncing back one of the lands.
There is Dryad in hand, so there could be a Dryad coming down now. So okay, Matthew is sitting back, so just waiting for to see what happens.
Remember, there is a Summoners Pact that's happened, so we do have to pay 4 mana next turn. I'm not as crazy on the new rule changes about that. You can't actually miss that now, but you know that's everyone's got their own opinion on how it goes. But more importantly, how is Luna going to get back into this game as she draws the turn?
I think what you said, Supreme Verdict. I mean, Supreme Verdict isn't necessary. Just a single, point removal spell on Titan, and we're continuing the game. So if there's like a Leyline Binding for 2 mana on Titan, hold up counter magic or something. I mean, it's by no means over. It's by no means over. Now, if there is something like I mean, half jokingly, Cryptic Command bouncing the bounce land, which used to happen. I've done that a lot in my life. Or spreading seas or something on Simi Grove Chamber, the game could be over immediately, but not in 2023.
So it looks like we're going to use this charm and draw 2 more cards. We are digging for Solitude at this point, I believe. Doesn't look like we found it. Found a Veto plus another filter land. And she passes back. I like this.
So before the game, you asked me what I think of this matchup, and I said, well, Blue-Eye Control has so much removal that a single Titan will always get killed and stuff like that. Well, apparently, that's not the case.
No, it happens. You know what I mean? Things just didn't, as we were talking about, her answers didn't line up well to the fact she had a very counterspell heavy hand. Cavern of Souls put an answer to that. We know Matthew plays at least 2 of them, but now the players are going to go reach to the sideboards and start shuffling up. What sort of cards do you think we've got? We spoke about dress downs. We've got them in the main. We know she's got a couple on the board because we saw on stream last round. So let's focus more on the Titan side. How can Titan try and show up this matchup? What sort of cards do they generically have in their sideboard? Because this is an open deck list. We don't exactly know. We can't get that information out. So we are just spitballing here, probably looking at an online website to see what sort of decks are being played. Anything, you think would change the tide here?
So sometimes they play lands in the sideboard, something like more like Bojuka Bog or maybe Boseiju, and there could be, for example, more Caverns of Souls in the sideboard, so that could come in. Also, sometimes there are additional threats, something like Endurance, Tireless Tracker, stuff like that. So I think if there is one like Tireless Tracker, I would absolutely side it in.
It looks like we're going to jump across to Gary versus Steven. And it looks like Steven is also on Amulet Titan. Looks like he's putting up a good show this weekend. Managing to put a couple copies in today too. Gary we saw last round on Grixis Death Shadow. Looks like we've got a keeper. I think we're deciding if we want to mull or not over on Stefan's side. But while we're waiting, ladies and gentlemen, let's make a big shout out to the 2 sponsors on the stream currently. It's just Cool Stuff Incorporated. If you go click on there and use the code DJN, you'll get yourself 5% off everything on that website, I believe. And then on the other side, Drip, who will be giving away a Guy's Cradle to one of you lucky people that sign up. And when a new does that giveaway, you're going to be in for a chance, but you've got to be in it to win it. You can't just watch the stream and hope for the best. You actually have to sign up. So you've got a couple of rounds to do that, to sign up until we get to there. So, you know, I'm doing it. I'm signing up. I want a Guy's Cradle. I don't know about you, Screw, but I think I haven't owned one since I was a kid. But I would love to own one. It might even encourage me to start making Legacy Elves or something. As now we see both players starting off with a Burial Grazer. I'm going to hit our second land drop, which is going to be Double Forest. Sure, it's a Double Forest opener. No biggie. Stained Glass Forests. Love to see it. I'm a big fan of all the basics that Wizards have been printing more recently. What sort of basics do you use, Skura?
Oh my! Like you couldn't ask me better questions. So
I
for the
know.
people who know me, better islands, or just better lands in general. That's my shtick. Like I love better, specifically one better island.
I'll
Which
translate
is
for
kind of,
everybody. That's Beta Islands. Beta
uh,
Islands.
what
Your
was I
accent, it
saying?
comes across better, like better islands. It's all good. We
Oh
love
no,
to see it.
yeah, exactly. This kind of like purplish, orangish hue. Oh, I love that land. So yeah,
Okay, looks like we're going to start moving back across to our main feature match, which is Luna Eason versus Matthew Wright. Obviously, they're going into sideboarding. We're going to try and shore this up on Luna's side. She needs to start bringing in cards that will help her with this matchup. We see Supreme Verdicts push to the front. Even Supreme Verdict seems like it would be a good card, but could just be too slow. How quick can these Titan decks go off?
So technically, it's possible to go on turn 2. Which, oh my god, spreading seas! Wow. Okay, I haven't seen that in like half a decade in control decks. But yeah, it could go off as soon as turn 2, which is unlikely, admittedly, but is possible with like multiple amulets and bounce land. It is possible. But usually, I would say turn 3, turn 4 is more realistic, especially if Matthew wants to go off with Coven backup. Then it has to be like turn 3, turn 4.
Interesting. Obviously, that got quite greatly improved by the card that you were talking about. That just go imprinted the gardens. That now means that you can potentially make more amulets a lot quicker to go off. That is a nice looking Shark Typhoon. I believe that was like the Christmas calendar special secret lair or something. I think that it was double dressed down plus prismatic ending, and maybe that was the other verdict. Oh no, maybe she's taken out a verdict. We'll see. What are those top cards? Spreading Seas, Spreading Seas. Is that not Crucible
Crumble
World?
to dust. It's
Crumble
crumble to dust.
Dust.
Let's
Hello.
go.
Hello. Okay, remind
Yep.
everybody at home what that card does. Obviously, being a my feelings towards Tron are very well known, and that card there absolutely destroys Tron. How good is that card going to be if she can time it right in this matchup?
Well, average to be fair. Because the thing is, like you can crumble to dust like a Coven of Souls, but then you're literally tapped out, right? And they have a free reign of doing anything. Because with Tron, you cut down them from 7 mana to literally 2 or 3, or from 10 to 4. Well, with Titan, you get rid of Coven, which is just a drop in the mana ocean. You could get rid of a bounce land, but then again, their deck just has so many bounces and other lands that well, it could be against Saga, but yeah, it's okay. It's probably better than some other cards she has. It's probably much better with Teferi Plus when you can play it instant speed.
So we did see she brought in the Spreading Seas, the Crumble. Like, what are the key lands that she's going to want to hit? Because obviously, like Spreading Seas, there's a lot of bounce lands on the other side of the battlefield. Maybe we could just potentially just bounce the land back that Spreading Seas is on. So, like, what sort of cards are we targeting, or why is she bringing these in with the knowing that potentially that they could just get bounced and end up falling off?
So the first thing is that sometimes they really don't. They will have a single bounce land. I know it contradicts what I said with the dust, but sometimes they do have a single bounce land, so they couldn't bounce it back to hand. But it's usually for Saga, because the way the rules work, it literally it's 2 mana, destroy Saga, draw a card, which is a huge tempo swing. Also, Amulet Titan is this one of just a single deck probably that plays Amulet, plays the Saga on turn 1. Like no other deck plays it on turn 1. And Luna is on the play. So technically, Luna could go land pass, Matthew, Saga pass, and then Luna could immediately Stone Rain and draw a card, which woof could be devastating.
So let's talk. So Luna obviously only had a 1-lander, so she's definitely throwing that back, redrawing opening 7 to see if she can get a better 6. But over on Matt Wright's side, looks like he's kept with an O Stone in hand. Is this common knowledge now? I know a couple of online players are playing O stones in the main, or at least in the sideboard. Why are we keeping that in against Luna?
Yeah, so I think it's a very recent development because I've seen it on Twitter like in the last, I don't know, maybe like 2-ish weeks.
Yeah, it's very recent.
Yeah, it's very recent. So it's much better against control, which has leyline binding, right? Because you can unlock your stuff. So you play O Stone, and now it's a must counter, because otherwise you blow up, let's say, 2 leyline bindings and a Planeswalker, and you unlock your own, Primeval Titan, get another trigger. So yeah, I think it's for those situations.
Also deals with spreading seas if they happen to be on a couple of land. As it looks like we're playing into Luna's turn here. We just want to be playing land go. But she doesn't want to see on the other side of the battlefield is a cavern that comes down. We'll get confirmation of what that is naming. As she just plays a third land and passes the turn back. That's a bounce land off the top. For Matthew, he's going to play the Urza's Saga. It's going to come in with its 1 counter, 3 mana. I'm going to go out and say that it's on Dryad.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, yeah.
That's the expert opinion of both myself and Skewer, ladies and gentlemen. That is why you're all tuning in to hear top-rate plays like that.
Technically, it would have to be on Nymph, because I think Dryad doesn't have the type Dryad. It has Nymph. So technically saying that it's on Dryad would be wrong, because it's a Nymph. Unless it was errated. I'm not sure if
it is telling that it is Dryad, and
has it been errated?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay. It has. Okay, chat. Yeah. Okay. Everybody knows it's been errated. Okay.
And then binding is going to come down main phase here to get that Dryad off the battlefield. Saga is going to take up to 2, or is it? We're having a little think. There you go. Got to draw a card first. Doesn't happen in the upkeep, where normally these sort of effects happen in an upkeep. Saga's slightly different. It happens in our main phase. That's how we're able to float the mana before the fate when it's got 3 counters on it. But we'll see how Matthew can kind of navigate his way through now. He's got access to 4 mana plus his land drop for the turn.
So I think we can just switch into this Saga plan a bit, just to put pressure and make Luna have to expend resources on a single Saga.
It was quite a nice turn for her, right? She was able to deal with the threat on the battlefield as well as holding up 2 mana, potentially for counterspell, which we know she's got multiple of in her hand. Looks like we're playing bounce land, bounce the Boseiju back. Boseiju bouncing Boseiju gives us access to get that binding off the other side of the battlefield if we need it.
Oh, I saw Tireless Tracker. Yeah, well, let's go.
So that's going to be an OG foil Hallowed Fountain. Love to see it. I think she drew the charm off the top for this turn. We're going to make a token end of turn by the looks of it. Just a 1/1. Now we're going to draw.
I suppose it's going to become a 3/3 when you make another token and find Amulet. It could also be an expedition map, purely with the intention of finding another Saga and just switching the gears completely into this plan. And I really do know this plan, because I myself, as a station breach player, you usually take advantage of the fact that your opponent thinks you're attacking on this axis, and then you say, well, nope, let's kill you with a couple of 3/3s and 4/4s.
We did see that she pulled out one of the Supreme Verdicts as well, so maybe she wasn't ready for this plan. But we'll see. She's got 5 mana. She did shock it in, so potentially she could have Counterspell, Charm, or maybe just a Solitude.
Yeah, she does have a Solitude, yeah.
We're going to come across here for 3 points damage.
So what she could do is she could Solitude the other one and block this one. This would leave the board clear. But then again, this is what Matthew kind of wants, because there's one fewer Solitude for the actual Titan and for the tracker in hand.
She might be eyeing up using this charm to steal one of the tokens to block with. She's charm. She's going to draw 2.
Okay, so far as we've watched her, I'm not sure she knows other modes of Archmage's charm. This is literally every time. Divination, let's go.
No, that's a control player's bread and butter, right? They just want to keep drawing cards. 3 damage here. She knows her life total is one of her resources. She's at 20 life. Taking 3 points here isn't really much. Maybe we should be able to clean these up a bit later on. Doesn't look like there's any other artifacts dropping on the battlefield anytime soon. No more sagas to see. She doesn't think they're going to grow as the turn gets passed back and now she can play land. She might just want to get to the point where she can, ending one of these plus then solitude or something along those lines. I think she's using it smart. She thinks that she just needs more cards, more options to answer what's on the battlefield, while also potentially holding up answers for what Wright's actual game plan is of getting a Titan on the battlefield, or maybe maybe he's going to try to go for the Valakut route, but we'll see. Both these players have managed to get here so far, get to day 2. They both only have got 1 loss on their record. They do have a draw, unfortunately, for them, but it still leaves them live for the top 12 contention. I think we did work it out that X and 3 will make a top 12. So they're both still super live to make it into that. When they start going into the X3 ones, that's where you start looking at, sweating it and breathers. And when it comes down, Counterspell catches that. And now we're getting across. Now this is some real damage, right? This is 6 damage opposed to last turn's 3. So I believe she is at 17.
And also Cavern of Souls names human. So I think there is some preparation going on for Tireless Tracker to come down.
We're going to see the binding come down here. You got to remember, we still know about that Besaju in Matthew's hand. So she's got so many things to think about. There's threats on the battlefield. There's things to counter. There's potentially end of turn Besaju's happening. Matthew, I think, is in the driver's seat right now. Luna does have the work cut out for her, but not saying she doesn't have the tools to be able to do that. So we're targeting this. This is during combat still. No damage yet. He's thinking, okay, this happens.
And this is exactly why O-Stone is good, right? Because at some point, all of those cards can be unlocked. And wow, Matthew's looking at like a full grip, isn't he? It's like 7 cards.
So I think that would knock her down to 11, I believe. I believe she took 3 last turn. She takes 4 this turn plus 1 shock. So she'll be around 11 to Wright's 20. But we'll see if we can get that updated. Obviously, people don't know this is a 1-man band. This is a new running around doing all the stuff behind the scenes for everybody. So if you want to support the channel, this stuff isn't free. Make sure you do hit that follow button. You does use all these statistics to help get the sponsors. As we see a second Solitude comes off the top. Okay, so we got access to. We've got access to 7 mana this turn. Solitude plus counter spell mana up. So this will mean that she could take those couple of hits that she dealt with. She's just playing for the long game, and it looks like it's paying off for her.
But this is the thing. So she's at 11, but now, a single attack, and she's already down, in single digits. So this is what I was talking about.
Well, we could Solitude, right? We Solitude, get rid of one of these tokens, block the other one in combat. We gain up another 3. Then we've got a creature on the battlefield.
No, that is absolutely true, but then she has to commit right now in combat, leaving only 2 mana up, which can't interact with Tireless Tracker. So Matthew just baits out Solitude, just then plays the Tireless Tracker, plays a Filance, which needs to bait out another Solitude, which means we still have got all the Titans unsolituded and unleyline bound.
Well, the counterspell in hand can deal with the Cavern, right? Or is it? Oh no, Cavern's on human now. Okay.
Yeah,
so we bounced it and it's back on human. So yeah, that does look like we'll be able to get that result. She's going to make sure she taps her mana correctly. There's the 5 mana. Solitude. Exile one of these. You can gain 2, Matthew, up to 22. And then I believe Luna's probably going to. I'd like to move to blocks. Let's have a little look.
I would really, really like to hear what Matthew's thinking about, like with his whole grip, because with 7 cards in hand, he's not just playing what he has, like he's actually sculpting the way he wants to navigate this game. So I'm really, really curious how he does it. And whoa, we've got a flurry of subs. Thank you very much for the support.
All the support goes to putting these sort of strings on for everybody here watching this. Anu works so hard putting these on, ladies and gentlemen. This kit isn't free. Traveling's not free. All the luggage, go follow him on Twitter. You see pictures of his luggage and everything he's put on here. But that's so we can all enjoy this amazing game. So the Solitude did manage to block. After blocks were announced before damage, we used the Besaju to get rid of the binding to bring back the Amulet, which meant the token was a 2/2, so it does the trade. I actually love that little interaction there, because they get to gain 3, but now they don't have a life linker on the battlefield potentially to get back into this game. And you can't counter Besaju. It is just a It's a trigger, isn't it? When you use the
It's an
Beseiju
activated ability. It's an activated
activated
ability.
ability. There you
Yeah.
go. And as you
S
said, tracker.
Yep.
Now, how good's
So
tracker in this matchup? Talk to us about that.
right, so Tracker demands an answer immediately, basically, because Matthew, first of all, he won't miss a land drop. Right? Let's get out of the way. He won't miss a land drop. Also, there are bounce lands, which make sure he really doesn't miss any land drops. On top of that, with Dryad and Azusa and Grazer, he makes multiple land drops in a single turn. So one tracker can draw you, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. So it absolutely demands an answer, and that's another way to make Luna spend resources on creatures that quote unquote don't matter. And so in this case, 2 ley lines have been played. Probably the second Solitude will be played, and the coast will be clear for whatever, Dryad, Titan, Excavator. So Matthew's doing an incredible job at slowly but surely getting Luna out of resources. And to be fair, Matthew may have just been ahead on cards all that time.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a lot of cards in hand. So Luna looks like she's flooding a little bit here as we're going to pass the turn back. That is a lot of mana. That is 7 mana cavern plus a land drop for turn. And I think that was a Colossus off the top with another cavern in hand. Jeez. So get ready for it. If he goes for the Connovator here, there could be a lot of triggers happening. I'm going to let you talk through them on what that card does and when it lands on the battlefield. He's going for it. He might not go for that line. Well, there's a lot of other options I'm sure he's got in hand. He does look like he's got 7 or 8 cards in hand.
So the thing is that even if there is a cavern that allows you to play Cultivator Colossus, Luna could have Dress Down, which means that it will die immediately. Now you still get the trigger, so you can still draw, let's say, 12 cards. So which is probably good enough. But the creature shall die immediately. And so I think Cultivator will be coming down.
Well, this is 6 mana, right? Not 7.
Oh,
so
6, right.
Down. Yeah, so had the option to do it, chose not to, but we're going to go for the plan A, we'll call it, which is playing the Titan with an Amulet on the battlefield. Now as well, the math for Matthew has to work out. Do I need to do this? Can I bounce that? Do we start going to Teleria West and bouncing that back to my hand so I got potential future cards to going on? Or are we just going to try and get as many lands on the battlefield as possible? Maybe like double Saga or something. We saw that had good early game effect here.
You could also hedge it a bit and get like 1 Saga, 1 something else. So you could also find maybe another Boseiju and a Boseiju bounce land. Could be Boseiju Saga, and that Boseiju will just be bounced the following turn with a bounce land. So that just a lot of lines could be all in on Boseijus. Okay, you can't find 2 Boseijus because they will be sacrificed, of course. But okay, so
get Boseiju here, get back our Dryad for the second lot of triggers or something.
Jeez. Yep, that's another line.
These decks are so powerful, but I've said this for so long. I think it takes a really, really long time to master this Amulet Titan deck. But when you do, boy, are the rewards huge. Like, look at this. It's coming at you from so many different axes, and she's struggling to be able to keep up with this. Flooding doesn't help, but there's so much going on in this battlefield that she has to try and now deal with. As we're going to see, so we chose not to go for the haste plan there, just generically put our 6/6 on the battlefield, go find 2 lands, get Boseiju in hand, setting up for next turn. We can Boseiju, get rid of the binding, have our Dryad, have our Titan, have our Amulet, have a bucket load of mana, and a grip for the cards. What does she need to help her get back in this? We don't have access to things like Ephemerate. We saw at least some of the Supreme Verdicts got trimmed, but do those cards even do anything? Like, yeah, it's going to kill a creature here. Brilliant.
I think the idea of cutting the verdict is that you can still play Dress Down and, for example, 4 Saga tokens, so you're good. But now in this case, I think she has to like main phase Deluge, and try to find maybe like another Solitude, just hard cast it, and keep fingers crossed. This could be a strategy.
How's Double Shark Typhoon for you? She managed to find Double Shark Typhoon there. Not exactly the card she wants. It could be a redraw, but she still doesn't have a white card if she does hit a Solitude or something here. Hasn't hit a land for the turn.
Yeah, it looks like a complete mismatch between the answers and the threats.
Well, I suppose there's this argument here. We saw at least 2 caverns game 1. Where'd you stand on keeping Counterspell in your deck and maybe trimming on them and just keeping potentially just charms in, because at least you've got an extra mode if you do have some sort of cavern nonsense going on the other side, as we do see a Shark Typhoon get cycled.
So I've played my fair share of blue-white in my life, probably too much that I would like to admit. And it used to be one of the things to do, which is to trim on counterspells because of what you've just said. However, the counterspell can still catch Amulet, can still catch Pact, and can still catch the things that the Cavern isn't on, right? Now, they of course can shuffle the Caverns, play it on Dryad, play Dryad, bounce it, and again on Titan. But also you just wouldn't have enough cards to bring in. So unless you do, of course. But yeah, you wouldn't have enough cards to bring in when you cut the actual chaff, and then you want to get into cutting counterspell.
So it looks like we're going to copy the Cavern here. So maybe that's naming whatever type the Colossus is. Chat, help us out. What type of creature is that?
Colossus, I think Colossus is a beast.
A beast, okay.
It is. It's also a plant. So if I were a Titan player, I would say plant.
Yeah, I would just for the
just say
the
plant.
cool factor. 1 mana floating. And here it is. So it does come down. We're going to get a read of this, and I'm going to pass over to you while all these triggers start happening and let you talk through exactly what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what happens with Cultivator Colossus is that you can put a land into play and then draw another land, right? Now, as I've said already, this deck has upwards of 30 lands in the deck. So as you can see, land, draw, and a lot of the time, whatever you draw off the top is another land. So right now, there will be probably, I don't know, probably 10 lands to draw. Oh, actually, no. Oh, okay, it's been let's say just 6. So now the ability has resolved. So now all the triggers of the lands go on the stack. So all the untaps go on the stack, Boseiju, Exile goes on the stack, Saga trigger goes on the stack. So what's great about starting with Colossus is that not only are you drawing, let's say, in this case, 6 cards, but you effectively ramp again, right? Because all of those lands will get untapped, and thanks to Amulet of Vigor. So in this case, there will be a Dryad deployed, or maybe a Titan, or possibly both. So yeah, I mean, I think Matthew's going to get his hand shaken in a moment.
So drawing cards against control is good, right? Just to clear that up, it's a good thing to do, is ramp yourself as well as have loads of cards and the battlefield.
However controversial that sounds, I think I can agree.
Sweet. So as we do see, the Dryad comes down without Cavern, so that's going to get a counter spell. But potentially we've still got the Boseiju, right? So we could just get Bone back if we want to. We haven't gone to combat yet. I'm not even sure how many cards she's got left in hand. I think she might only have 2 or 3 cards. So the chances Go on.
Yeah, she has Typhoon land and counterspell. So, but yeah, it's nowhere near winning. If she hypothetically, if she could play Farewell or some kind of Wrath of God, it doesn't really matter because Matthew still has got a bajillion of cards in hand. Oh my god!
It's going to be game either way now. Yeah, I think the Boseiju. So we're waiting before the Titan trigger.
Oh, that's smart.
Resolves.
That's really smart. So basically what happened is that, first of all, he wanted to make sure that the trigger goes on the stack, because Luna could technically, for example, leyline binding the Titan. So he goes, attacks. She says yes. So with the trigger on the stack, when he knows the trigger will resolve, then he opts to get the Dryad and kill with Valakut. Excellent timing. Excellent.
Absolutely.
That was masterful. That was masterful.
And I say, it rewards you. It's very just